Now, we're going to go to our next speaker, who is a dynamite speaker. He's a good friend. He's a patriot. He's a former Marine. He is he's a commissioner, fire commissioner at Franklin Square, Munson. That's in Nassau County. And he had lost, he worked the piles after 9/11. He's a co-plaintiff in our lawsuit to get a grand jury petition. He spearheaded that fire department to basically vote to support the grand jury petition, the only fire department in the country to do so. And I'd like to present to everyone's listening a good friend and a good patriot, Christopher Gioia. Hey, Chris.
Thank you, David. Can you hear me out there?
Yep.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much for that introduction. 20 years ago, on a beautiful September morning, monstrous evil descended on America from cloudless blue skies. In the span of a few hours, our country and our world changed forever. Who would dare contemplate such a brazen attack, let alone carry out such a complicated plot? The makings of the attacks on 9/11/2001 can be traced back to another similar plot hatched not by Muslim terrorists, but by our own military and the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. The year was 1962, and the plan was called Operation Northwoods. False flag operation included the hijacking of commercial American jetliners, which would then be swapped out for drone aircraft, which were to be blown up by remote control. It also called for the CIA to orchestrate violent terrorism in the United States and U.S. cities, all of which were to be used to ignite and drum up patriotic support for an invasion of Cuba. The proposals were rejected by President John F. Kennedy, and the plan was shelved, along with the general who headed the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. This proved to be a fateful decision for President Kennedy, as he was subsequently assassinated in November of 1963. Fast forward 38 years. Lower Manhattan is shrouded in smoke from the fires that are burning where the Twin Towers once stood. The Pentagon has been attacked, and there's a hole in the ground in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The country is in a state of shock, and yet the official narrative is already being fed to the public, anxious for answers. Enter L. Paul Bremer. Bremer was appointed chairman of the National Commission on Terrorism by House Speaker Dennis Hastert in 1999. On 9/11, Paul Bremer was also an executive of Marsh & McLennan, a company whose offices were targeted by one of the planes. Coincidentally, Bremer was also on the board of Komatsu, a company which in 1996 had developed a nanothermite demolition patent that could demolish a concrete structure at high efficiency while preventing noise and flying chips. On the morning of 9/11, instead of going to work at his office in the Twin Towers and dying with hundreds of his fellow employees, Bremer shows up at MSNB Studios, not as an executive at Marsh & McLennan, but as a self-described counterterrorism expert. He's seemingly unbothered by the fact that his office has just been blown up and his coworkers have all been killed. He amazingly gives us the first announcement that the perpetrators were most likely Osama bin Laden, Iraq, or possibly Iran, and told us we needed the most severe military response we could come up with. Commissions to investigate the JFK assassination and the attack on Pearl Harbor were both initiated within 1 week of the event. In contrast, President George Bush stalled for 441 days before starting the 9/11 Commission on November 27, 2002, and then, only because of the intense pressure from lobbying efforts of a group of 9/11 widows, collectively known as the Jersey Girls. Yet 5 months prior to this, the Bush administration and the Department of Justice had already moved swiftly to suppress evidence that could be used in discovery proceedings and several civil lawsuits resulting from the September 11th attacks. In June of 2002, Robert D. McCallum, DOJ Assistant U.S. Attorney General for the Civil Division, and are you ready for this? James B. Comey, United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, informed U.S. District Judge Alan Hellerstein in a letter that the Justice Department intends to intervene to control access to all evidence and documents related to the 9/11 attacks. So here it is, 20 years later, our government and the Justice Department and the FBI and our mainstream media think we are all still stupid enough to keep believing without question that Osama bin Laden and 19 hijackers carried out the 9/11 attacks. They are not concerned about facts or the truth. The FBI flat out stated it had no evidence linking Osama bin Laden to the attacks, and there was no federal indictment. But that does not matter. Just as it does not matter that Osama bin Laden worked for the CIA in Afghanistan, and that the Justice Department released the names of 2 Saudi government embassy officials who aided and abetted 2 of the alleged hijackers, but refused to turn over more information by invoking state secrets. Mainstream media could not be bothered to report on that or to print a picture of President Bush, Vice President Dick Cheney, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, and Prince Bandar of Saudi Arabia smoking cigars on the Truman balcony at the White House on September 13th, 2001, while discussing the escape of Saudi nationals and members of Osama bin Laden's family on chartered jets out of the country without first being questioned by the FBI, all of which did take place while Lower Manhattan was still burning, as no other planes were allowed to fly as everything else was grounded. And then there's NIST, the federal agency tasked with investigating the largest fire-induced collapses in world history of World Trade Center 1 and 2 and Building 7, which the 9/11 Commission omitted completely from its report, like it never happened. 4 years later, in September of 2005, NIST issued a report on the collapse of World Trade Center 1 and 2, stating fire and structural damage from the airplane strikes caused a progressive collapse. 7 years later, in November of 2008, NIST issued its report on World Trade Center 7. The building collapsed due to an extraordinary, once-in-a-lifetime event never seen before or since in high-rise steel frame buildings. Fire was the cause, NIST claims. NIST said no evidence of explosives were found, but that they did not check for explosives because NIST said that there were no reports of such a sound. But eyewitness testimony from Barry Jennings and others about multiple explosions inside the building proves that NIST lied. This is where the whole 9/11 story literally falls apart. NIST ignored NFPA 921. The National Fire Protection Association Guide for Fire and Explosion Investigations, NFPA 921, sets the bar for scientific-based investigation and analysis of fire and explosion incidents. Referenced in the field, in training, and in court, it is the foremost guide for rendering accurate opinions as to incident origin, cause, responsibility, and prevention. The facts are this: Building 7 was not hit by a plane. It was not a raging inferno. The sprinkler systems operated by gravity-fed tanks from floor 21 and above. By the time of its collapse at 5:20 in the afternoon, the fires had mostly burned themselves out. Unbelievably and most damningly, NIST even admitted the entire building experienced total freefall. That is just not possible without all the load-bearing columns failing at the same time. Maybe in this world, they believe that garbage, but in the real world, fire does not act that way, as any close-up video of Building 7 coming down clearly shows. Maybe that is why NIST really waited 7 years to issue its report. It does not matter. Science does not matter. The facts do not matter. NFPA 921 does not matter. The only thing that matters is protecting the big lie at all costs. Except when you totally ignore the facts and distort reality, you really are asking people to believe in a fairy tale. And it is called The Emperor Has No Clothes. Adolf Hitler said the big lie is a major untruth uttered frequently by leaders as a means of duping and controlling the constituency. The greater the crime perpetrated by the leadership, the less likely it is that the people will ever believe their leaders to be capable of perpetrating such an event. Our country is still in serious trouble, folks. 9/11 is the biggest lie of our lifetime, and Americans are still being lied to and manipulated by the fake news media. But the truth is out there for all to see thanks to the internet and alternative, unbiased news outlets. Mainstream news has rendered itself all but useless by perpetuating these lies and abandoning all sense of ethical and investigative reporting on this and other major issues such as the coronavirus, which has resulted in most Americans just tuning them out. According to a recent Gallup poll, 8 out of 10 Americans do not believe the news is accurate and that an agenda is now being foisted on them. How about our celebrity journalists celebrate their own crucial role as defenders of democracy? If they do not want to render themselves useless, they need to swear allegiance to facts wherever they lead and not just to the party line. Or as Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana put it more indelicately, they have to be equal opportunity assholes. So where do we go from here? Two groups, the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry and Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, have been relentless in their quest for justice, and the fight continues. By keeping the public informed with the facts that can be proved, and with the filing of lawsuits to seek legal redress, the fight rages on. That is the single biggest thing the real perpetrators of 9/11 don't want, and that is for 9/11 to wind up in a courtroom with attorneys and subpoenas and before a judge and a jury that will consider all the evidence. It is the cornerstone of the American justice system, and up till now we have been denied that by a Justice Department that protects the real perpetrators by hiding them behind state secrets. Yet we're denied legal standing and justice to the survivors of 9/11 and the family members of the victims who were murdered, including my friends, FDNY firefighters Thomas Hetzel, Bobby Evans, and Mike Kiefer. President John F. Kennedy once said, "The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society." And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies and to secret oaths and secret proceedings. Our way of life is under attack. Any reasonable person must conclude that the government is hiding something and is afraid of the truth, as there is absolutely no reason not to release all the information and to finally empower a federal grand jury, especially after 20 years have passed. People lie, but the facts don't. Moving forward, the inalienable fact about this horrible crime is this: if our government continues to urinate down the backs of the American people about 9/11 by telling them it is raining, the heavens will fall and justice will be done when the people find out it is not. Thank you, David.
Christopher, thank you very much. Very inspiring.
Hi, I'm Gioia, a friend of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. Please share our website and videos with everyone you can, and stay tuned for more information about the virtual anniversary event from the Lawyers Committee on September 11th, 2021. Thank you.